My wife and I recently passed the millionaire net worth mark, primarily through buying, fixing, and selling real estate, and more recently starting an e-commerce business where we sell an online information product where we actually received this ClickFunnels award just last year, which indicates that we've made over $1 million of income through our online business. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing the top 12 lessons that I've learned in my 20s and my 30s that you can apply in your business or even a career. So let's get into it. Now, the earlier you can do this, the better. And for me, it was 18 years old when I first saw an ad actually on a bus bench that was talking about a business conventions show, an expo that was happening at the convention center where I live. So I ended up going here and I was drawn to all these franchises, different businesses, ATM machines. And one thing that drew me close was this vending machine. And so I went there, I checked out their presentation. Again, I was sold big time. I was 18 years old, like emotions were running hot. And I ended up going home and sharing this with my parents. And, by the grace of God, I convinced my mom to give me $15,000 and I convinced another friend and we went into business together. Long story short, that was a total flop. It was way harder than what I thought it would be. I tried to set up these machines and everything and it didn't work out. And again, hindsight, looking back at it, I would have looked at that as a failure, but what I really realized was that I was actually interested in business. Fast forward a few years after that, I got introduced to the financial services industry where I worked for an MLM company, a network marketing company where I sold life insurance and mutual funds. And it wasn't until through that connection that I connected with somebody that introduced me to real estate, so owning properties. So I ended up buying my first couple of rental properties at no money down because that's what you could do back then. And it was through exploring these in my early 20s where I realized what I really wanted to do. And for me, it was real estate. So for you guys, if you're in a career even, it doesn't have to be a business, but if you're in a career or you're in a business, you want to try to figure out as early as possible and with the least amount of time. Like me, it was 5 years for me to find out what I really wanted to do. And so I started doing that. I started developing those skills. So again, the lesson here is figure out early on what you're good at, what you're naturally drawn to, and where you can really sink your teeth in and build a business. Finding a mentor has been a huge game changer for me. So early on, going back to when I started working for that financial services company, I had my mentor who was my upline, somebody who brought me into the business, and they started spending a lot of time with me and just shadowing them, having them go out in the field, watching them do presentation, sell life insurance, sell mutual fund investments, sell seg funds, watching them, learning through osmosis. This is how I learned actually how to properly conduct business, how to do presentations, how to do follow-ups, how to do sales, how to handle objections. And so for you, whether you're in a career or a business, you want to find somebody that you can shadow, somebody that can take you under their wings where you can learn from, not just book knowledge, but also execution, how they conduct themselves, all of these things. And really just finding an unofficial mentor. You don't need to pay thousands of dollars to somebody, but someone that's already in your field, someone that has a heart to teach. And that's made a huge difference on my journey, is just having somebody who taken an interest in me, but also wanted to pour into me and watch me grow. That mentorship has been a huge part of the journey where, again, I don't have to figure out all of these things in business by myself. Because again, there's probably somebody out there in your field, in your career, that has been doing it, that's farther along their journey than you, because there always is, and having somebody to model your business or your career path. If you're in your 20s, and sometimes even when you're in your 30s, you're still trying to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life. And so what I would say about that is you do want to try different things in the beginning, right? Especially if you're in a business, you're in a career path like I was in vending machines and I was in life insurance. And I was just trying to figure out what do I really enjoy doing? There's nothing wrong with that. You just don't want to stay there doing that for a decade if you don't have to, but explore some things, try a few different businesses where there's not a huge capital expenditure. You don't have to put a bunch of money in, but you're investing time. And again, this will help you really refine your skills just in general, whether you're going down a career path and you're working for different companies, you're gaining skills, you're gaining knowledge, or you're just in business, you're doing business. And for me, When I figured out it was real estate investing, property ownership, I bought rental properties. I had rentals and I owned multifamily, single family. I started flipping and then I started wholesaling. And it wasn't until doing, even within the real estate field, I figured out that I really just enjoyed flipping houses where I didn't have to own a bunch of rentals. And again, I have rentals today, but my main niche where I've made majority of my money has been in short-term buy, fix, and sell. So again, even within an industry, you can niche down and get good at one thing where that's where you really gain skills and that's where you really earn a lot of money because you have mastered one thing. Through this all, you need to maintain long-term focus. And what I mean by that is you might be in a career path or a business where you're just not seeing the results that you want. And again, I've built 2 multi-million-dollar a year businesses in real estate and in e-commerce. You can see my ClickFunnels award that we got last year. And so through that, I've learned that you need to have long-term focus because you might look at your business over the last 12 months and you're like, man, this is not where it is, or even over the last 24 months. But again, if you're making money and you are developing skills, you are getting better, and you see it that you are actually slowly starting to make money, you need to take that time to develop because it just takes time to get good. And even if you're at a career path and you're trying to excel in your career, you're going from one job to another, but again, your salary keeps increasing, your skills keep increasing. That's what you need to focus on. One thing for me, it was really hard is when in my 20s, especially in my early 20s, I accumulated a lot of consumer debt. I bought cars, I borrowed money from my parents to go to school and I really did nothing with it. And all of these things, I had racked up $60,000 of debt. And I held this honestly throughout most of my 20s. And it wasn't until my 30 or 31 where I actually started making really good money. And again, this goes back to what I said. It takes time to build those skills of sales, of, sales persuasion in business or whatever career path you are. It takes time to learn how to make money and get good at one thing. And it wasn't until my early 30s that I wiped out all of that debt. But if I had just given up and thrown in the towel and said, for me, business isn't for me, I'm not good at this, I wouldn't be where I am today, where we have a multi-million-dollar net worth through our e-commerce and our real estate house flipping business. It wouldn't be there if I didn't maintain that. And again, I'm just getting started, right? I just this year turned 40 years old and I'm still kind of like, man, there's just so much more to do. And again, knowing what I know now, I would have done things so differently. And that's what I'm sharing on this video, to really, share my heart of like, wow, there's things that I wish I had known, someone had told me in my 20s that I should have done. But again, this is how it happens, right? This is how you learn. You learn through mistakes and trial and error. But again, it doesn't have to be that way. You also want to be investing in yourself. And what I mean by that is, how are you constantly learning? Are you going and reading books? Are you watching and listening to people that have actually done business, or they've built a career on, different things like podcasts, interviews, reading books, even watching YouTube videos of people that you really like following? So again, investing in yourself, investing in courses. And for me, I spent a lot of money. I've spent probably $60,000 or $70,000 on marketing, on sales, on real estate training. And I've constantly invested in myself and my knowledge because, that's the biggest asset that you have. And I learned this from a guy that I follow by the name of Jim Rohn. And he said, you get paid for adding value to the marketplace. And that's always stuck with me, is the more value you can give, the more money the market, aka your business or your job, is going to pay you. Why is there somebody that makes, in the same hour, somebody might make $15 an hour, and in the same hour, somebody will make $1,000 an hour? It's just because they've learned to add more value to the marketplace. You will get paid in the direct proportion of the problems you solve for people. And for me, the problem that I learned on early that I wanted to solve were people's housing problems, helping people buy a home for their family. Again, buying it, renovating, and selling it to somebody. I got paid really, really well. And then again, when we started our e-commerce a few years ago, now I started teaching other people to do the same thing. And again, we got paid very, very well because again, I was solving people's problems. So even if you're in a career, think about it. Even if you're in a career, you should always think of yourself as an entrepreneur, or what we call an intrapreneur, where you have that entrepreneurial mind, but you're helping you're helping your business, the business that you're working in, the career path that you're at, you're helping that make more money. So how can you, even as an employee, if you don't have a business, how can you add more value to your boss, to your team, to the industry, the industry that you're in, the business that you work for? Again, if you take on that mindset that even if you don't have a business, but you are constantly developing your skills and you're building on your assets and you're learning and all these things, you're going to make a lot of money. Because for most part, people in their 20s or 30s, they might have a job, they don't have a business, and they're just like, man, I just want to clock out, I want to get out of here, I just want to be done with my day. And they're trying to get through the day instead of from the day, right? You want to get from the day, and what can you add? What value can you bring? And if you change that mindset, you are going to make a lot more money, because I can tell you majority of people even in business or if they have a job, they're not thinking like that. Also, sales has been a huge part of my journey and my learning curve. From starting with vending machines and figuring out that I really sucked at sales. I didn't even know how to convince anybody to, take these little machines and put them in their businesses, to getting into life insurance, to getting into network marketing, then selling investments, then getting into real estate, trying to convince homeowners to sell their properties to me, trying to convince investors to invest in me, do private loans with me or do joint ventures with me, or, buy my wholesales. And then again, getting into online course sales. Again, I have always been in sales. I've been in sales for more than half my life now. And that's probably the number one skill that I can share with you guys is, if it doesn't matter, again, if you have a career or you have a business, your ability to sell, your ability to persuade somebody about your idea or your product or your service, it's going to serve you well. And again, for me, I haven't just learned all my sales skills in one industry, even though for me it was insurance. Actually, when I was working at that MLM, that's where I developed my skills of learning how to prospect, learning how to follow up, learning how to present, learning how to close, learning how to handle objections. That stuff has served me so well over the last 16 years of being in real estate. And because of those skills, I've made a lot of money. And that's where majority of my net worth has been made, is not through passive income, which is crazy how, you can believe this lie where you could just start doing certain things and just sit back and relax, even with owning properties. No, I've made my money through active income, selling products, flipping houses, raising money, and doing that because my active income is way more higher than my passive income today. And we do have passive income, we own rentals, but it's nothing in proportion. So with you, again, look at yourself. It goes back to my last point. Look at yourself as an entrepreneur, even if you have a job and you're working for somebody, because that's the number one skill. If you can get good at that, and you're going to make a lot of money, because at the end of the day, you're selling yourself, right? You're trying to sell yourself. If you have kids, you're trying to convince them to listen to you, right? If you have a spouse, you're trying to sell her ideas of, hey, we should go here for dinner, or we should go here for our vacation. So all of these skills are going to help you and make you a well-rounded person. Somebody that, again, the marketplace will pay a lot of money to. This has been a really hard thing for me to learn over the years. Was in the beginning, I didn't really have anybody teaching me about debt, about what is personal debt, good debt versus bad debt. My parents were horrible with money. My dad was really bad with money. And so early on, I started stacking up a lot of personal debt. Well, first thing, my income was low. My spending was high, right? So you could just see that, like, there's that huge gap. I bought vehicles and then I sold them for losses. And you know what? I got into other, sort of businesses like vending machines, and just wasn't the right fit for me. And then I just accumulated debt. And again, going back to what I know now, what I know today, is I would have stayed away from all of the personal debt, especially credit cards and vehicles, and even buying nice vehicles, because again, you want to have nice vehicles, especially when you're in your 20s, but then you rack up debt and then you can't pay it off because you're not making enough money. So, my advice to you would be is, if you can at all costs, stay away from personal consumer debt, which will bury you. It's just very, very hard to get ahead, right? If you want to buy something, save up. And again, I follow a guy, by the name of Dave Ramsey, and a lot of you might have heard of him, but he has these 7 baby steps. And again, you can, and I'll link up his video below where you can follow it. And I follow this, and through that path of following his 7 baby steps, I've became a millionaire through my business, through being very diligent, especially in my late 20s and my early 30s when I wiped out my debt and I really started making good money. I've been able to accumulate a lot of investments over that time. And, through that and through just things that I've learned in business, it's helped me out so much. And now we spend a lot of money today investing in our business, right? Investing in our skills. And I'm still learning. And I'm not saying like I'm 40 years old, but I'm still learning. There's so much stuff I don't even know. And there's people that I know, even in their 20s, people that are a lot younger than me that know a lot more. And so again, I go to people, right? There's that part that you need to have humility just to know that you don't know everything. So again, staying away from personal debt and managing that, because especially if you're in business, and for me in real estate, however I manage my personal debt, that's a good indication where an investor might come to me and they might say, hey, let me look at your net worth statement. Let me see what your investments are doing and where your money is going. Because if you want me to trust you with $100 or $200 or $500,000, I want to make sure that you can manage my money effectively. And again, that goes for a lot of you. If you're in business and you're using outside investor capital as well, that you need to manage your own money, right? That's going to be a good indication of how you manage other people's money. Now, as you're building your career and your business, it is so vitally important to even just surround yourself with people that are in your industry. And for me, it was real estate. I got around a lot of people that, again, they spoke the same language as me. They spoke and they talked about investing. They talked about deals that they were doing. They were talking about things that they were learning. So even if you're in a business, you're in a career, whether it's you're an electrician or you're an engineer, you're a doctor, surrounding yourself with people that are in your industry is going to serve you well, because you'll have times when it's really dark and things aren't moving fast and you're just having bad days, and where you can go to somebody that's probably been through the same thing as you, it's going to be huge. And even for me, when I started off, especially in my early part, like I had a hard time even convincing my family and some of my early friends on that, hey, I'm going into business, I'm going into real estate. And you start hearing all these things like, well, what do you mean real estate? You don't know anything about business. You don't know anything about this. And it could be very disheartening. And it wasn't until like I actually noticed that, like, wow, there are people out there. There's meetup groups that meet regularly that I can attend. There's, either monthly or bi-weekly presentations, there's seminars, there are people that are in my industry that I can go and I can build friendships with. And a lot of these people today, a lot of my friends are in business, right? Not that I went and seeked out people like that for specifically, but again, you make friends with people that have common interests. So for me, that's a lot of people in my church. They're either entrepreneurs or they're, faith-based people. And again, those are people that I'm naturally attracted to. So again, for you, surround yourself. Don't do business. Don't do even building a career. You don't need to do it by yourself. And you're not meant to do it by yourself, right? There's people out there that are willing to share ideas, even sit down with you. That's going to make your journey a lot more smoother and more enjoyable, because again, you want to build these friendships and just have people where you can talk to them about things that you're doing, share ideas, what's working for you, what's not working for you. And it makes that whole process a lot more better. This is probably one of my favorite, probably the best lessons that I can give you guys is, especially if you have a partner, you're married, or you have a girlfriend, boyfriend, is whatever career or business path you're in, you need to find somebody that is supportive of that. And what I mean by that is I see far too many couples, especially in real estate, where, one of them is looking to get into investing and the other one is totally not on board. They don't support them. They don't want them to get in. And again, it causes so much friction, and you won't believe how many people I talk to, but that's a regular thing. It just blows my mind where people they find somebody, or, they pick a spouse that early on, they just don't recognize these things. And then, again, they get into marriage, and again, it causes so many problems. So you can avoid that. right? Especially if you're early on and you haven't gotten into a marriage, or you haven't found who you want to spend, the rest of your life with. You want to find someone that's supportive. And for me, it has been by the grace of God that I met my wife. I actually met her at a real estate event. And so she already had an interest in real estate, in the path that I was in. And you know what, we met there and we became friends. And then of course we got married, and we got two beautiful children. But the beauty is she speaks the same language as me. She doesn't just share the same faith as me, which is a huge part as well, but she also speaks the language. So when I'm talking to her, or maybe I have to work a little bit extra longer and whatnot, she understands what I'm doing. Right? Again, you don't need to fully have the same career path as what we've done. But again, you need to find somebody that's supportive, because that's going to help you in your journey, especially when you have those bad days, and you can just lean and share and have somebody that is supportive of you. Because whatever business you're in, you are going to have gloomy days. You're going to have days where you want to quit, you want to throw in the towel, you're going to have self-doubt, and you're just going to beat yourself up. But having that supportive spouse, it's going to help you get through that journey. And that's probably one of the most important relationships you will ever have. Well, it is the most important relationship. It's more important than your business partner you pick, or the career path you choose, is having the right spouse that's supportive. And that's going to be a huge part of your success. The next thing I want to point out too is, I know it's cliche, but it's so true, that at the end of the day, whatever career or business you pick, it really is a journey. It's not a destination. You're not trying to sprint to get to $1 million net worth, or 2 million, or 5 million, or whatever your number is. It's really enjoying the process while you're getting there, right? It's enjoying it. It's developing your skills. It's developing your talent that you have. It's developing your network and getting friends in the industry and all of these things. It really is a journey, and that's what you need to think of it. And goes back to my other point, where it is long-term, because if you're not enjoying the day-to-day process, the day-to-day grind that's helping you become the person that you want to be, then why are you doing it, right? And again, I'm saying this to myself even, right? Well, again, even today, like, we have days or months that are maybe slower than we would like. And I got to tell myself, like, if I'm not enjoying this, well, then I might as well go do something else, right? But I know that this is a long-term commitment. And again, you need to have that perspective when you're building it, because you are going to have crappy days. Especially like where you get into a business or you lose money and you start really questioning yourself, like, man, am I even meant? Am I right for business, or am I even right for this path? Maybe I got let go from my job and all of these things, but you need to have that long-term focus and enjoy the journey, because again, nobody has a perfect career, right? Nobody has a perfect career path. From all the people that I've met, everybody's had ups and downs. Even multimillionaires and billionaires, they go through crap, right? They go through crap to get there. But again, that's the whole part. That's what makes it, sustainable, something that's going to help grow and develop as you grow and develop. And it all really starts in these 6 inches between your ears, is developing that mindset, that grit that you need. And the last point I want to make here is, whether you're spiritual or you're a person of faith, for me, that's been a huge part of my success, especially when I had those really, really bad months in business where, again, we ended up losing money on a deal or a venture. And I had my faith to really lean on. I had God to lean on, where I could come to God. I can ask for wisdom. I can pray. I can get around other believers that had been in the journey along with me. And I can press in, because again, going back to my other point, you don't need to do this by yourself, right? You can choose to do it by yourself, but you don't need to, right? That's a choice of yours. But having a strong faith, something that you can lean on, and going through that, where again, you're doing this with, you're doing this with a higher power, you're doing this with God, or whatever, you call God. That's going to help you in this journey, especially on those lonely path where, you're doing stuff, and not even in your career or your business, but life happens, right? You lose a family member, or something happens, or something tragic happens like that. And for a lot of people, I've seen them just throw in the towel, right? They just quit running their business, or they get a job and they're like, this is not for me. I can't handle all this stress. And again, that's going to help you lean on something else, in your faith. And for me, that's been a huge, vital, important fact, probably more than all of these other things that I've said. Especially as I get older, I start realizing that in my early years, especially in my 20s, I just wanted to be rich. I wanted to make as much money as I can. And I have made a lot of money now, especially in my 30s. That's where I made majority of my net worth has been in those two businesses, right? E-commerce and real estate. But again, now I'm starting to realize like, wow, there's more to this whole thing than just making money. Well, what do I want to do, right? What do I want to do now with my time? And I have more time than ever, right? I have more money than ever. What do I want to do with that time and money that God's given me, right? What do I want to do? How can I help others? How can I serve people? And that's one of the reasons that we started actually doubling down and making more videos like this, because I want to share my journey and what I've learned and all those things over the years, so that you guys can, again, take what has worked for you and you can apply that to your business and career. So again, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this one, I'm going to link up another one here that talks about some of the common mistakes that I have made, especially in real estate, if that's something that you're also in. And we'll see you guys all soon.